Jan asked me to come and talk about storage and hydrogen, and I thought to myself, okay, well, I have to frame this somehow. And I just thought, okay, well, let's start with this energy transition we're going through, right? And I'd start with what the path forward is. Ultimately, we decarbonize. What we have to do is do two things. We have to electrify as much as possible of the system. That's the key point. Electrify as much as we can of the energy system. The second thing is reduce fossil fuel consumption. Now, remember what I just said? I said reduce. I said not get rid of. I don't believe we'll ever get rid of it, okay? Because they're too valuable. But we have to do these two things, right? That's what we have to do going forward, right? Now, the good news is we've got incredible low-cost technologies for generating electricity and managing power flows. And this is very, very, very important because if you look at the innovation here and compare it to innovations in other parts of the energy sector, the cost reductions are just incredible. So just very simple, cost reductions in power electronics in the last year are about 50% across the world. Solar costs are down 30% since the beginning of the year, so are batteries, all right? And again, innovations continuing in and around this space. The issue, though, of course, is we don't have this word in English, and we do now. It's called Dunkelflaute. What happens when you've got no wind and no solar? What do you do? It's really simple, guys. You store the energy. And I really just want to make a point. We've been doing this for hundreds of years. So why do we make a big deal about it, right? We store the energy. And there's a few ways. Look, we can use the existing fossil fuel systems that are there. In other words, you can burn coal on that January day, you can burn gas. I mean, that's one possibility, right? The second possibility is you go and use these incredible array of new technologies that are being developed across the world. And as I said, I can't even keep up with the amount of technologies that are in this space, and I've been looking at it for years. But the point is, we could do that. That's very clear. So we have a solution. It's called storage. So let me just talk about one storage technology that stands out, and we just ignore it. It's called lithium-ion batteries, right? The reality is lithium-ion batteries have enabled the digital world that we live in, and also in terms of the scale that this technology has come to market, we've never seen an energy technology do what lithium-ion has done, right? But we take it for complete granted, right? Be really clear, we would not have electric cars without these type of batteries, right? If we went back 15 years ago and somebody said, are we going to have electric cars? They say, no, it's all going to be fuel cells, it's going to be hydrogen, because they didn't see the improvements in energy density and the improvements in cost that we've seen in batteries. And the result is this, is that I give you the statistic in China in Q1, 35% of all cars are electric, right? Just be clear, 35% for all of them. But it's not just cars that are electrifying. I think the most interesting one is two-wheelers, scooters, motorbikes, etc. 44%. Go to China, 90%. Right? The only ones that are still buying internal combustion engine motorbikes and scooters are the Europeans and the Americans. Right? But again, you can see what we're doing here. We're going to buses, we're going to trucks, etc., etc. Right? The other thing, very interesting, this is California. This, by the way, happens on a weekly basis, but this was the first time it ever happened. On April the 16th, what you see is, the yellow there is the sun. So what happens when the sun goes in? What happens when the sun's not there? Well, it's interesting is if you see this little blue, and there's a blue here, what you see is it's batteries. So batteries taking that excess solar and storing it for the period that you don't need it. And so what you're seeing on a regular basis is that there are 3-hour periods where batteries are the biggest source of generation in California today. Right? So that's the big picture of batteries. If we look at the tailwinds, it's just incredible cost reduction and improvements in energy density, and they are continuing. Really, they are continuing. They're continuing because we've got the best minds in the world, Japan, China leading this, us following and trying to catch up. And guess what? We're all doing the same thing. The second thing I want to say is transport. Transport's a game changer because what it does is it gives you massive scale. Instead of doing a tiny little battery, suddenly you're putting a 95 kilowatt hour battery into a car and you're scaling this up and you do a huge amount of things with it, right? What's fascinating about this, though, and all of it, is that, just to give you an idea, is that we're at a point now where we are price parity at the upper end of the car market in Europe between an internal combustion engine and an electric vehicle. If I go to China, it's already at the mid-level, okay? So it's very, very, very interesting what's going on there. And again, that just drives more and more scale, and again, prices down. Next thing is we need the batteries in the system. So I don't know if you know yesterday what happened. Germany power prices yesterday hit 10,000 euros a megawatt hour. And the reason was because there was bad weather across Germany and they couldn't predict what level of sun there was going to be, what level of wind there was going to be. And you had 2 periods at 9 o'clock in the morning and then later on the evening where prices were at that. Well, guess what? If you have enough batteries in the system, you can see what you can do. You don't have that volatility, and you as a battery owner, you make a lot of money out of it. What's also clear is we're going to continue adding more and more intermittent renewables. You do that, what you do is you have more periods of excess power. Again, lends itself to batteries. This situation is the Dutch grid right now. The Dutch grid, if you decide now you want to build a new house, good luck to you. You will not get a grid connection in most of the country for 18 months. And you might say, okay, that's just the Netherlands. No, it's not. I live in Brandenburg outside Berlin here. Oranienburg, city north of Berlin, exact same thing. There's a construction stop because of congestion in the grid. Guess what? Batteries help reduce that, right? Other thing I'd say is just the level of R&D that's going into this area. It is mind-boggling, really, the amount of money that's going in. And the reason is because everyone realizes from a strategic point of view that this is critical. And I tell you, if you asked me 10 years ago and said, would we ever electrify airplanes and ships? I would say, no way. I'm not sure anymore. Okay, and the reason I'm not sure is because, again, it's the innovation that's out there in this space. So anyway, that's what we're seeing there. Let me talk a little bit about the economics of it. The economics of it, what we're going to see is batteries used in our power system behind the meter. That means in our buildings. In front of the meter, which means ultimately, as part of the power system, and co-located with generation, right? We're going to see this. And what we're also going to see is batteries being used in different locations. So Germany has a whole pile of batteries that are sitting behind the meter. They're not really used in the power system. I've got batteries in cars. They're not really used in the power system. You can see where I'm coming. This is all going to intermix. And it's for me, I think it's a really exciting world because we don't know what the services are. We don't know what the offerings are, et cetera, et cetera. But what we know is this technology really does make a game change. I want to give you an idea of just some of the how profitable these things are. If you put in a battery in the UK in 2021, 1 hour battery, you had a 35% IRR on it. So in other words, you had a payback period of 2 years on it, right? Now, obviously, the more batteries that go on system, the less the volatility goes down. And you can see if you're putting in a system today, you're probably getting 15% IRRs. But you're still getting good returns on this, right? What's interesting, though, is if you really want to put batteries in a system, what you need to have is differences between charging and discharging of about 50 to 60 euros. There's 3 markets that are really interesting: Germany, Spain, and Portugal. And you're going to see batteries put in the system. When you see 10,000 euros a megawatt hour for a battery, no offense, if that happens 3 times in a week, I have a payback period of a year on the battery. Okay? And we will see this volatility going forward. Other thing is behind the meter. We recently did some numbers in and around payback periods for putting in solar and storage. What you're looking at is in particular countries which have high power prices: Denmark, Germany, Italy, Ireland, UK. And what you suddenly see is that payback periods for putting in the 2 of them, they're in around 6 years. This is without a subsidy. And by the way, it's only going to get better because, as I said to you, storage prices are down 30% since the beginning of the year. Let's assume they go down 20% again. You can see what happens to the numbers. Storage, solar, the exact same thing. And also, by the way, again, I just say innovation really was going to lead to trains, planes, and ships being electrified. So that brings me to hydrogen. So let me just start by saying that hydrogen is incredibly important as part of our energy system. And if you think global emissions in relation to hydrogen production, hydrogen, for example, is used for fertilizers globally. It's also used in the oil industry, in the gas industry, in the chemical industry. It produces more emissions than Germany. Okay, so it really is a focus to decarbonize as quick as we can this system, right? What I would say is the opportunity is ginormous, right? If you just look at it, McKinsey here came up with a look at what they thought the opportunity is going forward. And you can see these are huge, big facilities that at some point in time are going to be decarbonized. You just they counted across the world 332 large-scale industrial production units that need to decarbonize, right? What I will say, though, is hydrogen is not the silver bullet. I want to go back. If I'd sat here and I had an auto executive beside me 10 years ago from BMW, he would tell you the future's fuel cell and hydrogen. It's not. Okay? It's not. They betted on it and they got wrong and they're in trouble. Okay? Now, why I say that is that what we have is must decarbonize our fertilizers, hydrocarbon, desulfurization, steel. Then there's maybes. And what's interesting is there used to be loads of maybes, but the maybes have now gone into unlikely, right? So if I just want to say unlikely urban delivery, metro trains and buses, lorries, even short-haul aviation, they've now gone into unlikely. And I want to say this is very important because it's the innovation that's taking place in storage. As an analyst that's been looking at the sector for now, I haven't seen innovation in hydrogen and fuel cells in a decade. It is changing, but they've lost a decade against batteries, okay? So that's what I say. What I will say, though, is that the opportunity is ginormous, right? They really are ginormous. And they are huge projects. You know, these projects, one project we're looking at, it's a €1 billion project, right? See, these are not small to actually do these. These are big industrial plants. And what I will say is that there's lots of supply of hydrogen out there, green supply of hydrogen, but the demand's not there. So there's a lot of blah, blah, blah in the market that we're going to buy it, and they're going to buy it. But actually what the issue is that a lot of the production costs, and I'm looking, for example, in euro here, you're looking at €8 for a kilogram of hydrogen. Well, you know, if you're doing it with natural gas, you're at €2, right? You buy some offsets in there, you're at 3. That's the issue that we still have in it, but again, it's early days. So, but the price is not right at present, but it will change. What I also say about hydrogen is we don't know what color it's going to be. Now, this is, the industry talks about colors. Gray is you're using fossil fuels. Green is obviously what you're doing is you're using electrolyzers and using renewables to do it. Issue there is that we've got intermittent renewables, not that easy, right? So then the idea of blue hydrogen is what we do is carbon sequestration. In other words, we store the carbon. Turquoise is where we use this pyrolysis technology, a completely different technology that you use. This has been pushed by sort of BASF and some of the big chemical companies. And then we got pink at the end, which is we use nuclear, all right? And each of these are different, and as I said, there's proponents of each, and there's also people who are very critical of this. Like, so a lot of the green guys don't like the pink guys. Nobody seems to like the blue guys, right? This is the sort of, I call it the hydrogen wars we really have at present. What is clear, though, is that a lot of talk from hydrogen people that, oh, we're going to use all the electricity is going to be for free. Yeah, right. It's going to be free for a few hours a day. The battery's going to take that. Okay? And the battery's got much more efficiency. That means the battery actually, from a cost point of view, they can even pay more. Always pay more because of this, right? But what's clear is, what is interesting in it is, it is a huge investment opportunity. So I'll very quickly talk about investment opportunity. Batteries, all about Asia. Okay? Very difficult. I'm waiting for Northvolt to actually come out with batteries into a car for the last 5 years. Still haven't got anything. So, you know, tough, right? Second thing is, be really clear, China leads in innovation. This is number of clean energy patents. This is in fuel cells, this is in hydrogen, this is batteries, this is solar, wind. They're way ahead of us in terms of innovation. Second thing, they're dominating actually all key raw materials. So you have to be very, very, very careful in and around that. Second thing I would say, though, is, well, commodities is also interesting. We're going to need lithium, we're going to need copper, we're going to need all this type of stuff. These companies are publicly listed, and they need capital. We can't do this transition without capital going into that mining area, and there's lots of innovation in that area. The other thing I would say is, in terms of chemistry, it's tough to pick the winner. It really is tough to pick the winner. There's so much innovation and so much competition going on. Each have different advantages and disadvantages. Difficult. But exciting. To get it right, the opportunity is enormous. I'll use one example I think quite interesting is sodium-ion. Sodium-ion is a cheaper alternative to lithium-ion, and I think you're probably going to see this used in stationary storage coming to the market this year. Finally, I would say about hydrogen is, what you're going to see in hydrogen is, whether I criticize it or not, what you're going to see is a massive rollout of hydrogen in the next few years. And so the opportunity is ginormous. There's a whole pile of government money going at it. And I know this from the solar boom in the past. You chase subsidies. That's what you do in this energy space. So chase it. So that definitely is a huge opportunity. And it's been led by the oil and gas companies who are looking at this and sort of seeing it as a way to decarbonize. Plus, it's their skill set. And actually, I want to say as the end of it, what really gets me exciting is this. is these are all the startups in and around the energy storage area. You cannot just put batteries in. You have to manage the batteries. You have to make sure that the batteries in the homes are managed properly, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got a whole pile of interesting business models. Now, I'm just going to try this, and then I'm going to stop at this point. This is a business we recently financed called Wonderwall. They go into a new building home with a full decarbonization solution. So they're basically putting everything in behind the meter, and you're putting it in a flat rate. So you give the customer a flat rate for their energy going forward. That's where we're going with this, guys. That's where we're going. And I think that's what really excites me most of all, is combining these technologies into solutions that actually decarbonize our world quicker than we're doing it up to now. Finally, growth opportunity is enormous, which is all the reason why we're here. There's money to be made, but it's a difficult path going forward at the same time. And I'll stop at that point in time. Here you go.